areas. So what are they? Let's meet our panelists for today. Welcome Tiziana Garcia Tapia from UNICEF Indonesia, Dr. Ashrada Swin from WHO Indonesia, and Felix Weidenkauf from ILO Asia and the Pacific. Hello everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hope you are all doing great. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to know the first thematic area. So over to you, Tiziana, to discuss more about meaningful participation of young people in decision making.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vanya, and good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to all those tuning in from across the globe. My name is Tiziana, and I'm excited to be here today on behalf of UNICEF Indonesia, together with Indonesia Youth Diplomacy, Y20 delegates, observers, and other UN agencies to introduce this important topic on meaningful participation of young people in decision-making. So as many of you know, many young people across the world are still unable to influence many aspects of their own lives, lacking access to civic engagement opportunities to influence planning and decision-making. Young people have important views on the policies and programs that shape their lives and communities, and when they are engaged as equal partners, we know that they contribute to social change, and in that process, they build better futures for themselves and prosperity for their communities. Today, together with Y20 delegates and observers, with and for young people, we will discuss how to overcome these barriers that stop young people from fully participating and develop recommendations on how to address them. I look forward to today's sessions and hope we can develop some truly youth-led solutions and recommendations as we lead up to the Youth Summit next month. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Tiziana. And yes, as Tiziana mentioned, that it is very important to engage young people in a meaningful participation, treating them as equal partners. So now let's hear about the second thematic area, mental health. Is it the next pandemic? So greetings to our panelists, Dr. Ashra from WHO Indonesia. Over to you, Dr. Ashra.
Thank you, Vanya, and welcome all delegates and observers to this workshop. My name is Asra from WHO Indonesia, and together with Dr. Andrea Bruni, in addition to what my colleague Tiziana has mentioned, we will also discuss mental health, which has become a global concern since the pandemic hit in 2020. We learned that 1 billion people are living with various mental health conditions, yet only 3 out of 4 people have access to the health services, especially low and middle income countries. For many years, mental health problems have also been relevant only as health issues, despite the conditions may confiscate individual rights towards themselves and the society beyond the rights to health. And globally, it was reported that mental health issues have affected youth as early as their adolescent life. And suicide is among the top 5 leading cause of death among youth following the depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders. So in the discussion, we will identify how youth mental health shall be well addressed, especially on its social determinants. Finally, I hope today's discussion will produce valuable recommendations to be discussed further during the Y20 Summit and even further actions to various youth-led initiatives. Thank you, and over to you, Vanya.
Thank you, Dr. Ashra. Yes, youth mental health is important, especially during and after this pandemic. So it really gives us more understanding how important it is health, including the mental health itself. So last but not least, let's listen further about making youth employment opportunities more inclusive. How to do so? Let's learn from Felix from ILO Asia and the Pacific.
Thank you, Vanya. Dear Y20 delegates, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure also to welcome you all from the UN's International Labour Organization to this joint UN and Y20 workshop on equity, diversity and inclusion. My name is Felix Weidenkauf from the ILO Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Making youth employment opportunities more inclusive is a key concern in our economies and topic of our session today, co-organized by ILO together with UNESCO and UNHCR. Over the past 2.5 years, young women and men across the globe have been disproportionately and negatively impacted by the massive disruptions we've seen to our economies and labor markets because of the COVID-19 crisis. And this has exacerbated the vulnerable labor market situation many young people already encountered prior to this crisis in a rapidly changing world of work, from informal employment to low wages and non-standard forms of work. Youth are often the first ones leaving the labor market once a crisis hit, and they're facing considerable challenges in getting back and finding decent employment. And despite these unprecedented policy measures by governments, disadvantaged youth face even more challenges. For instance, young persons with disabilities, young refugees, or because of gender disparities, lower levels of education or socioeconomic background. Youth employment policies and programs need to be inclusive, so every young person has the chance to fulfill their aspirations and obtain productive employment and decent work. I look forward to our dialogue today on what it takes to make youth employment opportunities more inclusive and how to shape a human-centered recovery from the COVID-19 crisis for youth that is inclusive, sustainable, and resilient. I wish you all a productive workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Young people might be vulnerable to get employment, but at the same time, they also hold this power to be agents of change as long as there is also supporting ecosystem and how to build one. So we will discuss in this breakout room session. So thank you so much to all three panelists representing each thematic area. And now it's time to hear from young people who hold the key to finding solutions that will best meet their needs. As Felix also mentioned, it's about human-centered design approach as well. So let's give the mic to the three Y20 delegates that are here with us today to share their expectations, experiences, and any initial comment. Hello, welcome Y20 delegate representatives from many different time zones. Thank you so much for connecting all. Okay, so let's start from Jody Ann, our Y20 delegate from Canada, to respond the first thematic area on meaningful participation.
Thank you, Vanya, and hello to all distinguished guests and fellow delegates. My name is Jody Ann Wong, and I am this year's Canadian Y20 delegate for the Sustainable and Livable Planet track. I am from White Rock, Canada, on the traditional unceded territories of Semiahmoo First Nation and the broader territory of the Coast Salish peoples. As mentioned, today I am choosing to participate in Breakout Room 1, Meaningful Participation of Young People. I want to start first with an acknowledgement. Global youth have been pivotal in elevating the climate crisis on political agendas. It's safe to say that without the combination of youth grassroots activism, policy advocacy, and climate leadership, no government would have committed to net zero in an attempt to save our planet. Equally, the same can be said on other issues such as the youth agenda for gender equality, sustainable development, and the list goes on. However, as we maintain and advance the prominence of youth participation and engagement, we still have a very long way to go to eradicate the barriers while making our voices respected and accounted for at all levels, on all issues, and in all areas of political engagement. Indeed, the critical issues that we face today are intergenerational, and the nature of youth vulnerability is hence multidimensional. However, despite our inherent vulnerabilities, we are not just victims. Our stake in today's critical issues also rests on the fact that we too possess the knowledge, the expertise, and the embedded experiences that can promote positive structural change. And as such, we're not just added value that is called upon when it benefits the political rhetoric of inclusivity. Merely having a seat at the table also falls short of equity concerns in decision-making. We don't want to be invited to just speak. We must be co-creators and co-owners of the entire process. And of course, other adjustments and barriers must also be addressed, such as adequate compensation for youth time, expertise, and emotional labor. Underrepresentation has failed us, but so too will tokenism. We need accountability, co-ownership, substantive and funded participation, and intersectionality. Nothing about us without us. And I hope that from today, we can garner tangible engagement tools for youth delegates over the next few months. I hope that we can better dissect the barriers and enabling environments for equitable youth co-creators. And lastly, I hope that we, as delegates of this year's Y20, can collectively reflect on the responsibilities and privilege we have in accessing the G20 platform, and how together we can further cultivate and broaden the landscape for other youth and for our future generations. We must ensure that the proposals and decisions that we make today do not render others more marginal as we ensure a sustainable and livable planet. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to you, Vanya.
Thank you so much, Jody. And again, young people are not just victims or just being vulnerable, because young people is way beyond than just the decorations, but also really we have the knowledge, the experiences, different creative approaches from the grassroots action to the policy of advocacy of young people that has helped the policy making in climate action as well. And that's what we really like to see more, to advance further, to have more meaningful participation of young people. Now, what about the mental health issues? Please welcome Jane Laura, Y20 delegate from Mexico, to share her thoughts.
Well, what an amazing remark on the first work group. So amazing, Jody. Hello, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to my fellow delegates and observers around the world. Organizing members of this event, United Nations Indonesia and Youth Diplomacy Indonesia. My name is Jana Forting, Mexican delegate on digital transformation. And before continuing, I would like to thank these organizers for designing and bringing to us such important forums to equip ourselves with multilateral knowledge within the framework of this summit. We, the Y20 participants, are young citizens of the world, enthusiastic about being able to contribute to solving problems on the global agenda. And yes, perhaps we are here representing our countries because we have particular experience on the track we represent. However, it is very well known that best solutions do not consider exclusive factors to the issue at hand, but rather a complete understanding on the intersectionality of these challenges. It is precisely for this reason that I choose to participate in workshop 2, because as the title says, mental health seems to be a new and silent pandemic, one for which there is no cure with a vaccine or confinement to prevent it from spreading, but rather a consequence of that, perhaps. It is not okay to assume that there is no solution to our personal or collective emotional crisis, when we should look at how to empower our youth to talk about what affects us emotionally, and that it is true that there are negative charges that we must counterattack with resilience and positive thinking. I am very interested in leaving this workshop with an idea on how to empower our societies, especially our youth, to talk about how to deal with these mental issues and how to overcome the emotional scars of the COVID-19 pandemic, and how we individually can be there in the best way possible for someone in some kind of emotional risk. Finally, from my perspective, this workshop is so relevant since ultimately emotional prosperity and synergy of positive ideas are what will lead us to give the best proposals on employability for the youth, sustainability, diversity and inclusion, and digital transformation, priority issues on the global agenda and tracks in this Y20 summit. Once again, my recognition and thankfulness to the organizers of this event for the opportunity of learning and present this relevant topic in this forum. Looking forward for what we'll discuss in the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jana. And yes, mental health is a new and silent pandemic, but we believe that we can empower our society, our young people, to counterattack this, especially to deal with and to overcome these emotional scars. So let's move on to South Africa. Let's invite Tulo Hello to share feedback on inclusive youth employment. Over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, distinguished members, delegates, and observers. My name is Tuluhelo, and I am the South African delegate for diversity and inclusion. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizing committee for giving us an opportunity to gather here today. The socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 has created a crisis that further perpetuates issues young people and people from marginalized groups were trying to deal with prior to the breakout of the pandemic. One issue that has always affected many societies and continues to do so is that of youth unemployment. The impact of COVID-19 on the labor market is indicated by the increased unemployment rate and lack of youth participation in the workspaces. Young people across the globe already bear the burden of lack of job creation in their respective countries and are exposed to inequalities that exist in the workplaces. Young people and people from marginalized groups need skills that will help them get into the job market. In the recent years, we have seen how acquiring digital skills has become important, but the reality is that not all young people have the tools or resources that will aid them to learn these skills. Unfortunately, the skills gap among young people will continue to exist if our governments do not attend to this issue in an urgent manner. The uneven impact of the pandemic on young people based on their social status further creates a gap in the labor market. The pandemic hit the informal sector particularly the hardest. The livelihoods of most young people in developing countries depends on the informal economic activities. But unfortunately, COVID-19 disrupted activities in this sector. Many young people were left without jobs because of the lack of economic activities that were happening in the informal sector. In addition, the insignificant support structures and lack of access to social safety nets made it more challenging for young people to recover from the pandemic in the informal sector. Looking at the role international organizations play in ensuring that global economic, social, and political issues are solved and that people are offered a dignified life, my expectation of this workshop is that it will offer young people gathered here today a safe space to discuss issues that they are affected by, particularly that of unemployment among the youth. And secondly, I hope that as the youth will be given the knowledge and skills that will be beneficial to youth policy formulation in our home countries. And finally, through the discussions we're about to have, I hope international organizations will see this of unemployment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sulohelo, for sharing inequalities and also highlighting the important skills to acquire to keep up in this competitive era and at the same time to cope with this pandemic situation, including like how we could provide these skills to prepare young people as a more qualified human capital. So we will hopefully figure it out in our breakout room discussion. So again, thank you so much to all Y20 delegates for sharing your expectations, and together with the support of our experts, our facilitators in the Zoom room, I believe we can work on understanding the key underlying issues and finding recommendations to address them. Now we will proceed to the breakout room of those three thematic areas. There will be reflection on key issues and then brainstorm using interactive platforms as well as discussions on solutions or recommendation or actionable points that you could propose and share back to the plenary after breakout room. So the organizing team will invite participants to join in the selected breakout rooms, and I wish you an enjoyable discussion. Well, for those watching on YouTube, now we will have a break and we will be back online to share the results from the breakout groups, hoping to fit into the Y20 specifically and the G20 meeting in general. So thank you and see you in an hour. Let's go to the breakout room. Yay!
And thank you so much to all of the delegates and observers and facilitators from Breakout Room number 1 for such a fruitful and dynamic discussion upon to achieve meaningful youth participation. And I would like to give a little bit of opening remarks when we listen, maybe when we think of youth. Like basically youth, we're of course the future generation of this world, right? But somehow we keep being questioned upon our credibilities, upon our experience. We keep hearing that we don't have enough experience, we don't have enough competencies to create maybe something to change the generation and stuff. We keep being questioned, and of course, that is a big barrier for us to achieve the meaningful youth participation, right? And we'll keep being treated as objects because maybe they think that youth is only a figure of this story and not a character. However, I'm glad that all of the adolescent, young adult, and youth in here thinks differently. And of course, here are the several recommendations that are quite diverse and quite unique, and of course hopefully this recommendation could achieve our goals. The first one, of course, there will be the providing the safe and inclusive space for youth involvement, where we're going to involve youths from various backgrounds, education backgrounds, race, ethnicity, to be listened, and not only merely to be listened, but of course the public decision maker, they need to involve and they need to create actions based from the youth support. And of course, the second one is we need to enhance the credibility of the youths by giving them skill training, capacity building, giving them opportunity to jump directly to the environment and learn. So therefore, they could have enough expertise and experiences, so therefore they could be listened. And in regards to representativeness, the third one, there are certainly interesting points where we are going to involve youths as the important people, where hopefully we're going to involve them as the future youth of Minister of Youth, and yada yada yada. And of course, the next thing is not only to provide place for youth, we're also giving them opportunity to publicize their thoughts, to publicize their thinking of like what things should be fixed and what things should be changed for the better of this generation. And that marks the end of the recommendation from the breakout group number 1. This person is really happy knowing that we as youth have a really great future. And again, we are not figurine, we are not merely object, we are the character, and we're important to our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nico, for such an enthusiastic remark as well, recapping the main points to have meaningful youth participation, starting from the space or the positions and the place given for young people, and then the capacity buildings, as well as about the outreach of the publication itself for young people to be heard, to be taken into action. So next, now we have Aurelia Bianca. What are the final thoughts from your breakout room about mental health?
Yes, thank you, Fania. So from breakout room 2, when talking about mental health in the context of questioning whether it's the next pandemic, it is indeed a silent but deadly ongoing crisis. Our facilitators have facilitated the session wonderfully, and within the session, we will be able to come clear that it is clear that mental health falls on the degree of normal. Is there someone normal out there, someone so pure in their well-being, and why it is so important on being normal? It is a continuous state, and what we can do is to simultaneously work together. We have received quite a lot of recommendations, and I'm going to list some of them. First is the role of digital transformation in mental health. It is a very important resource, especially for youth. And acknowledging that climate change also can affect one's mental health, familiar as eco-anxiety. Social media also seems with the distressing content, and implementing capacity building can be useful in this situation, also with links to unemployment. And with the strategies from Helping Adolescents Thrive Toolkit, we will be able to come clear that policies and laws within digital peer support are important for youth age group, within improving quality environment, school, communities, digital spaces, building knowledge, and also interventions. It is clear that all of us, governments, youth, and all of the people in the world are able to move together in terms of thriving to a better mental health situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aurelia. I learned a lot as well about how actually the 4 pillars of the Y20 Summit, which are the digital transformation that includes social media as well as climate change, employment, those all are affecting as well the mental health, such as anxiety, as you mentioned. So hopefully, as you said, we could simultaneously work together to achieve a good mental health. So now let's hear from Nabila Gunawan. So yeah, if you could share with us the conclusion to make youth employment more inclusive, please.
Thank you very much. We had a very good discussion, and there were a couple of points that were repeated and mentioned several times. That one point is actually including youth in the decision-making table, and there were some ideas as to how to do that. And the second points would be that came up a lot would be creating the training program and capacity building to ensure that employment opportunities are much more equal. I'm going to start with the key constraints and the problems that were discussed in creating inclusive implementation of youth employment. The first would be the disparity in access to opportunities. So we have economic inequality, geographic, language and culture, and all these inequalities actually makes the youth employment and participation more complex. So it adds a layer of challenge to these groups who are marginalized. And then there are also lack of representation that youth have in the political space and also in the leadership space, in the government. Most of the leaders who are in power have been in power for some time, and there aren't enough space for youth to make a decision in the political space. There's also a discussion on how the definition of youth itself has shifted. So there aren't stakeholders aren't agreeing on the definitions of youth, and the point that lifelong learning is very important rather than formal education through institution or through a university. And then some of the specific policy measures that were offered in the discussion were first, capacity building and training, in particular by engaging the private sector, NGO and think tanks, as well as multilateral institutions like the United Nations and the ILO. And then there is a need to institutionalize and systemize the way youth can participate in the decision-making table, in particular by providing the space in higher level decision maker, but especially putting the marginalized group at the forefront when formulating youth inclusion policies. There's also a need to create the space and to consult with the groups that are in the margins. And then there's also specific measures to increase the youth quota, so they would be included in the institution and in the employment. And then on the stakeholders point, for job creators especially, so that would be private companies, NGO, it's important for these stakeholders to provide quality jobs and also training and capacity building. Educational institution and think tank can specifically help forecast the future skills that are needed for young people. And unions, labor unions and unions can mobilize to demand their rights as workers and as employers. And then the last points would be the role of young organization and youth organization. First, they can pressure the government and actively be involved in policymaking or decision making at a higher level. And then there's also an important point about fair representation in the different youth group, because not all young people and youth group look the same. So it's important that when engaging in activities, that the diversity of these young groups are captured. And then, of course, there's an emphasis on creating the space and platform so that these youth voices would be elevated and would be heard in the public sphere. I think that would be the key points. There were several, but that's the key point from breakout room number 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nabila. So many important points. And if I could highlight one as well, that when it comes to education, it is really not just about the formal ones, but about the lifelong learning. to create as well as the training programs so the future talent could also match with the job opportunities and criteria. And yeah, as we have these three thematic areas about equity, diversity, and inclusion, it is really important to involve marginalized groups, including to make sure that the labor unions could also perform and having the fair representation as well throughout the job itself. So again, thank you all so much for very insightful plenary feedback. I personally have learned a lot, and I hope so do you. Quoting Jody and earlier that there is no us without us. So we call the world leaders, especially from the G20 countries, to really give the commitment to giving space to young people to participate meaningfully in the decision making, starting from the planning, monitoring, implementation as well, and also to give the attention to the young people's mental health, as there is no vaccine to mental health, as stated by Jana. And last but not least, quoting from Tulohelo earlier, it's very important to also prepare the relevant 21st century skills for young people and to give opportunities for inclusive employment with all the diversities that we have. We hope those recommendations will not end here. And yeah, hopefully we can really use it as our guidance. And as mentioned as well in our breakout room, that please feel free to reach out as well on how we could shape this recommendation better to be able to cross the message, convey the message to our Y20 summit as well as G20 meeting itself. So yeah, hopefully we could empower one another, including those young people out there. So at last, I, Vania Santoso, would sincerely like to say thank you for joining this UN-Y20 workshop on equity, diversity, and inclusion, and see you at the next Youth Summit. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.